So what can you tell us about Ascension?
It's a intergenerational spaceship that was launched in 1963 by President Kennedy in secret, and it's headed towards the Proxima system. It opens up today, 50 years into the journey. Kennedy launched the program and authorized it soon after the Cuban Missile Crisis, basically as a lifeboat for humanity. Basically took a wide ethnic diversity of humanity, said we've got to make sure that we survive ourselves no matter what, and we don't blow up the world, and sent them off on an incredible mission to they're heroes.
So will it have, like when we meet them on the ship, will they sort of have a 60s sensibility as opposed to a modern?
Yes, well, it's a what-if narrative. It's, and this is it's a very common trope in speculative fiction. What if the Roman Empire never ended? What if, people were sent in space in 1963? So culture is diverged. It's different than what we know. And there are different cultural differences.
So when, like, Andrea Ross' character got on the ship, I mean, if we're looking at 50 years in the future,
She didn't get on. She was born on.
She was born on. Oh, okay.
So,
her
and she has a
parents were
daughter
running
on the board. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's one of the primary questions of the show is, did our grandparents screw up? We didn't have any choice in our destiny. It was chosen for us by people that never asked our opinion because we weren't born. So there's a lot of the sort of existential dilemma that comes with being locked into the world. And some people think maybe their grandparents made a mistake. Maybe they were conned by the government. Maybe they bought into something that wasn't real. And maybe they should try and turn the ship around before it's too late.
Now, does the whole thing take place on the ship?
Primarily, yeah.
And so what is the technology if everything is started in the 60s, unless they have all kinds of scientists and they
They
figured
did.
out?
Well, I mean, they took, in fact, that'll be one of the narratives we'll find out later, is that some of the brightest scientists on Earth were taken with them. One character says, if you take 600 of the best and the brightest, put them in a tin can for 50 years, you'd be amazed at the things they'll come up with. And
So you talk about destiny being locked in. So are the children, I guess the children of the original Voyagers, are they locked into the jobs that their parents had? Or how
there
does that
is,
work in society?
yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the sort of bones of contention, because although ostensibly it's a meritocracy where you can shift jobs, in reality, most people follow their parents. One of the entry points of the pilot is our XO. His name's Galt. He's an African-American young man who's risen from the lower decks to the XO, which is the second in charge of command. But that's rare. And he's taken someone else's job who thinks it should have been his, and there's conflict between them. And most people follow in their parents' footsteps. For instance, Andrea's character, she's a doctor, and her daughter, she thought would follow her into the medical center field, and instead, after her friend Lorelai's murdered in the pilot, she kind of uses it as a gut check, and decides, I want to go into terraforming. I want to, be part of what it's going to be like to build a new world when they do get to Proxima. So,
Are they still in contact with her?
they haven't been in contact with Earth in many years.
Well, yeah, because everybody who's their best and brightest are all on the ship.
Well, no,
Earth's gonna
the
be
message.
suffering.
Well, they're not sure if Earth even exists anymore. They still send back messages, but they haven't gotten replies in years, and there's scientific reasons for it. But even if they were able to go back and forth, the messages would take 17 and a half years. They're so far out of space. But there's disruptions caused by their massive pulse propulsion engine. Basically, it's causing interference as well. They've realized that, and that was sort of a flaw.
So this is a 6-episode event series. Is it going to be one complete story told from beginning to end, or is it open-ended?
It's definitely there's a sense of where we started and where we end. Things have opened up, but there's many more stories that could be told.
And when do you air?
November.
And so you're hoping to tell many more stories? You're hoping that this goes on?
We'll see what the network says. Yeah. It was always designed to have a much larger 5 or 6 year arc, and it has lots of surprises. You'll see when it airs. It's not what you expect.
So how large is this society on the ship?
Well, there's 600 people on board, and that's their optimal amount of crew members. No one's allowed to just have children. Everyone gets birth control implants when they come of age, and they're only removed when they go through kind of a computer lottery. It's called the selection, and someone has to die before anyone else is born. They've got to keep their population stable to make sure they preserve their resources, allowing them to get approximate.
So there's always 600.
There's always 600.
The person pregnant or whatever.
And that's one of our episodes. We deal with what we call the Ostara Festival, where we take a look at the people that have passed away in the last year, and then who the computer has chosen to be able to breed for optimal genetic viability.
Also, they're just totally relying on
Yeah.
science.
They think they're not, we'll see. There might be some surprises there, but a lot of their fate is out of their control. And one of the characters, one sort of a teen character, is a little more rebellious, full of angst, says, the idea of choosing an apprenticeship is just a con that they sell us to create the illusion of free will. In reality, none of us have a choice, and we never did. And our grandparents screwed us. They sent us on a mission to nowhere. It was a big government payday, and we're just headed out blindly into space. So there's that question as well. Should we turn around?
So I imagine there's then a big generational rift, right?
There
Because
is.
no one who's younger
There
probably...
is, but at the same time, there isn't. Because parents are more respectful to their children are more respectful to their elders. A lot of the things that sort of baked in the cake pop cultural rebellion that we've really developed over the last 50 years doesn't exist, and so it's a little shocking to speak back to your mother if you're, she says, "Where's this coming from?" to her daughter. She's surprised by it.
It's that 60s mentality.
Yeah, exactly. Your parent, mother and father know best. Father Knows Best, which was a show from the 50s.
So what's the tone of the show? Is there humor mixed in, or is it very serious? Or?
There's humor. You've got to, life is humor, but there is that. It's drama, there's action, drama, introspection, romance, very sexy. There's a lot of sex. It seems, when you're in space and you don't have anywhere to go, that's what people amuse themselves with, it seems. So I think it was kind of based on a template I had gone on semester at sea when I was in college, and that's what happened on that primarily.
And they don't have to worry about getting pregnant because
They all have their implants. In fact, one of the characters says that her daughter sees a guy who's the rebellious teen I was telling you about, and her friend says, in essence, "Hey, why don't you hook up with him? You've got your implant." She says, "It doesn't mean I have to use it." And she says, you might as well have fun now before the birth computer chooses who you're going to be mated with, for just mechanical procreation. So
now, do they have to get married or do they just mate?
the birth computer allows them to get married, and then they have 1 year that they're allowed to have to try and conceive.
And then they're not allowed to conceive anymore?
And then if they pass that year, it goes to somebody else.
But they have to stay married.
Yeah, they can get back in the lottery for another time later down the line. There's a lot of that sort of, a lot of the science fiction is more speculative fiction, more like the Hunger Games in that sense. It's like the way cultural constructs play on the characters is what's more interesting than just like, I've got a tricorder and a phaser. That stuff doesn't interest me any more than just like pure run and jump does in action movies. It's got to be about, in science fiction is really, America's literature of ideas. We were never like Europe in that sense, where we are Argentina, where you have a Borges. We have Philip K. Dick, and that's where our ideas come from, and that's why it's such a valuable and strong tradition.
Talk about casting. How difficult was it to find the leads?
Well, Trisha was the first person hired because I had lunch with her and I gave her the script, and she's like, "I love it," and I'm like, "Well, we love you, and please come do the show."
She's the queen of sci-fi.
She is, and it's like her fans are, and she's great. She's just like such a great tone on set, and everybody loves Trisha. And then I had to find someone could hold the stage with her, and I cast Brian as her husband, Captain. Although we'll find out that Trish is really the steel in his spine. He's conflicted and weaker than she would like. And then we, put together a big ensemble. I think we have over 30 speaking roles in the pilot, so it's a huge show.
So it's like the captain, is that something that's elected or passed down? Or?
He is kind of appointed by the council and by popular vote, and the captain on the show was the hero of a fire, we'll learn. There was a fire 20 years earlier, the biggest catastrophe they've had up until this murder. And because of his sort of heroic actions, it's kind of, and with Tricia as his wife, they were placed in this kind of Darwinian climb to the top, and they got the role. But it's always, it's a sort of Damocles. Councilman Rose, who's Al, wants his job, wants him out, and other people. He's always sitting on the, precarious spot there.
So it's a democracy. I mean, there's like a Congress.
There's a council.
You get voted into council, or you just are that you were appointed
Yeah,
as your
you
parent?
do get voted into council, and there is that, but there's.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.